If you can stop talking for 10 seconds, that would be fantastic. You want to hit the start timer on there? You want to hit? You want to start podcasting, genius?
Her favorite one is like, time travel's not possible. Because if time travel was possible, someone would have gone back in time and killed Hitler. And you just go, nah, dog, time travel is possible. But the guy who invented it likes Hitler. And if we're being honest, wouldn't that explain way more? If the reason things are so shit today is there's a Nazi time traveler? Like, remember 6 years ago when all those Nazis started getting elected? Remember that? With like Viktor Orban and Bolsonaro and Boris Johnson and Donald Trump? And everyone was like, holy shit, where did all these Nazis come from? And it's like, nah, dog, not where, when?
Hello, and welcome to Carnival Personnel Sideshow. We are recording this. I use the royal we because Biff is in LA and it is 5 a.m. there, and Joe is a grown-up with a real job here. So I'm flying solo, which is kind of a bummer, but it's kind of okay. We have a guest today who just came across my Instagram feed a few weeks ago via my friend John in Austin, who most of the stuff we send back and forth are little rails and insulting bass players or glamorous clips from the old days of the Patriots in like 2017. But we also are very political, and he sent me a clip from a guy who had this different take on time travel and killing Hitler. I've always said if I have access to time travel, I think I would go kill art school Hitler. I think killing baby Hitler, I don't think I could do, but so probably art school Hitler, but that's after using the time machine to go see the talking heads at CBGB's. I mean, if you can time travel, does it really matter what order you do things? So John sends me this clip, and it sends me down this guy's rabbit hole. Indian American, and before anybody posts when I say Indian, I'm not saying Native American. I'm talking his parents are from India. So yes, Indian American comedian. And I think the clip that I saw was from a special that he shot in Amsterdam, but I've seen clips of Barcelona. So basically, he's a lawyer who's very smart enough to not be here in the country, but his comedy is brutal. It's so smart. It's so cutting. I'm trying to find other ways to describe it. I wish he was here more doing comedy with me, just because he seems like a fun guy to hang out with. But also, as I've been talking about, I wanna, I don't know if it's talking truth to power, but in New England, most of the audience that I talk to are 50 years old and up on the average. Sometimes, I'm doing it in front of younger people. Sometimes it's a bunch of blue hairs, but I want to fundamentally change my comedy. I want it to be funny, which would be a big change for anybody who's seen it. But I also want it to start trying to move the needle any way I can. I don't want to lecture people, chastise people, say I'm smarter than anybody, because I am not. But if I can make people say, maybe being pro-life also means not being pro-gun, that kind of stuff. This guy is doing it. He's doing it truly around the world. I think he's probably been in 17 countries since the pandemic. He was over there for most of the pandemic, so his passport probably has to have pages updated on a regular basis. He's way too funny. He's way too talented, and he's way too important to be talking with me. But please give a big Carnival Personnel welcome to Sid Singh. Hello, Sid.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Dude, how much did that time travel clip get you new followers? Was that like a real viral moment for you?
Sort of. I think it definitely got me a lot. But it's been interesting. Yeah, ever since it came out, it's been really cool. How about this? A lot of the clips I post uh inherently will get racist comments, right?
I can't imagine why.
And what's really fun about this clip going viral is it's probably the most earnest, sincere, and wholesome comments I've ever gotten on a video, where it's just people debating time travel, and I'm like, that's nice. This is they're just and it's everyone tends to be largely respectful.
Well, is it what you're saying, or is it that? Hold on, let me see. That A Brown is saying it.
Well, so yes, when it's racist comments, I think definitely it's normally when it's I think it's also because often the topic of my videos will be like comparing UK racism to US racism. And then you'll just get a bunch of people being like, the UK is allowed to be racist, or the US isn't as racist, you shut up, or whatever. Whereas this Hitler video, it's most people just being like, I think it would happen like this, but what about in this movie when it talked about that? It's just like just a bunch of nerds having fun.
And so that was a clip from your special that dropped in December. When did you shoot? So yeah, Sid has a special out now. I was so jealous because A, it was shot in Amsterdam. B, he shot it in front of a lot of people from around the world, but there was one part where he figures out that a good part of the audience is Canadian, who kind of were really getting all, they were, it was just a great special, but that's where I saw so many of these clips from. Tell me about the production and how that special came together and why you shot it where you did.
Sure. I used to live in Amsterdam. I was a cast member at this place called Boom Chicago. Um, so when you're trying to shoot a special, you're basically just like, hey, what city can I fill the room in the fastest? To just guarantee that that's not a thing I have to worry about. And so basically, I was doing another show. I was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and this producer came and saw it, and she was like, hey, I work for a lot of documentaries that end up getting signed by Netflix, and we would love your special, and would love to see if we can sell it to Netflix. And so the funny thing about that special is I probably filmed it a year and a half before it actually came out, and it just got sort of stuck in this like development hell of like this was only supposed to be a proof of concept, and then we would film the real one at like a bigger venue with nicer cameras or whatever. And they were like, we're going to pass it right now or whatever. And I was just sort of like, all right, well, let me just put it out. Who gives a shit?
I'm glad that it's put out because, like I said, I've watched it once at home, but I've listened to it a couple times because I drive a lot. And so and because I missed a lot like the first time, and it moves pretty quick. Your references are smart. Dude, it was, but you're telling it in front of an audience that really got it. So that must have been, that night just must have felt really good, start to finish.
Well, one of the things is you're so stressed out as you're just trying to make sure all your ducks are in a row, that all your cameras that you're recording with are working, and that the audience is going to show up. Like I remember, the funny thing about Dutch audiences is, I would say in Europe they're probably amongst the most punctual.
Okay.
Like when I'm in Berlin, Berlin is known for being late. Barcelona is known for being really late. But like Amsterdam, it's so I'm filming. Doors open at 8, and the thing is supposed to start filming at 8:30, and 8:25. There's maybe 3 people in the room, and I am just spiraling inside my head. I'm like, oh my god, okay, what's wrong with you? The comedy. Why you putting so much? I'm just thinking about all the money I'm about to lose from renting the room, and I'm paying my friends to help me film this thing, and this is and I just go to the bathroom to clear my head, and then I come back at 8:30 and the room is full, and I'm like, okay, thank God.
That's that. Yeah. Cause going up to film your special, that's what you really need the 5 minutes before dealing with that.
Yeah.
Now I wasn't aware of your TV work beforehand because I don't watch a lot of Romanian television.
Yes, that's more than fair. They want me back, for the record. And my agent is like desperate to get me to never do that show again. I have a lot of fun because I'm like, it's such a surreal experience. I'm like, who? What do I care? Let's just see what happens.
Well, so Sid did essentially Romania's Got Talent, and you did not speak Romanian.
No, no. It's one of the most interesting things where they want to promote their comedy community, but because it's still a relatively young scene out there, they started dipping into the Romanians who speak English well. And then once that sort of got dried up, and they were like, okay, well, how about friends of Romanians? And then because at the time I was dating a Romanian comedian, I got invited on the first time, and then uh, we broke up, and I continued to I continued to do the show.
Is is this Romanian into conspiracy theorist, or is that another one?
Say that again.
Is this
Yes,
the comedian
yes, sorry,
friend
yes,
who,
it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
okay. What makes a conspiracy theory great or have legs is a semblance of truth. Obviously 8 different organizations definitely wanted Kennedy dead, and
Right.
so that's why it was fun, because it was all plausible why these people would want it or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But now conspiracy theories are just whatever Earl thought of, whatever racist thing that Earl thought of,
Yeah.
that day. But now it's not fun and it's not funny, And so when you were talking about that, I'm like, oh man, Sid, you got to come here and tell people this. You know what I mean? My wife showed me a great meme the other day. Scientists in the 80s, we cloned a sheep. Scientists in the 90s, we put the rover on Mars. Scientists today, for the last time, the Earth isn't flat. So you've traveled a lot. Where is home now, or are you allowed to say?
Well, that's a double-edged sword immediately. Home is sort of between London and Amsterdam is probably the best way to put it. In that one of them is where I am legally listed, and one of them is where I live. And I travel a lot, so I'm actually never. I don't live anywhere for longer than 4 months in the year, probably just because of all the touring I do. So, for example, right now you're talking to me in Lausanne, Switzerland.
That's awesome, dude. That is, and it is. As we're recording this, pulling back the curtain, we're here on a Wednesday. So you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday shows there, or do people go to comedy shows on Wednesday night in Switzerland?
So so much of the English comedy in a lot of these countries is the counterculture. So it's easier to sell tickets. So for example, I am in Lausanne. I did 2 shows yesterday. I'll do another show today, and I'll do one last one tomorrow. And then I take a train to Vienna, and I'm in Vienna doing shows all week.
Dude,
And
that's
then
just
Lisbon.
ridiculous. That's absolutely so. You travel a lot. When we moved overseas, that was the first time I realized, oh, wait a minute, we are really fucking racist in America. But
Yeah.
wow, they're racist over here. And they love America first, British people second. But as far as the Asians go, the pecking orders, they love Koreans.
Right.
They like the Japanese. And then looking at my list, the rest of them are pieces of shit. And it's and just how but I appreciate this. I will tell you what I do appreciate: the honesty about it. I don't like Pakistanians because I don't like Indians because. Now, what they said after the because was complete shit.
Yeah.
But at least they didn't pretend. And what was really funny is, being aware, a geopolitical aware person, that yes, different regions and different people don't like each other. But we lived on this compound where all the guys, who sadly almost lived in like barracks who took care of the place, were all Indian Pakistani. And you thought they were, because they were the best friends. You know what I mean? It was just, maybe removed from those packets, or maybe the fact that I saw a comedian point out that yes, when somebody hates both Indians and Pakistanis, because they can't tell them apart, those Indians and Pakistanis kind of bond over hating the piece of shit like me.
Well, it is interesting too. Just that the more you travel, the more you realize what a construct race is because of so many different countries' perceptions about it in the first place.
So when you travel, have you been in Sweden? Find out like wait. You don't like the Belgians? Why has it been like a
Oh,
racist thing that took you
no one
off?
likes the Belgians. Is a fair point.
But have you traveled somewhere where you're like, wait, you don't like these people? Why again?
Yeah, it's a weird thing where like it's almost like it explains why white people were sort of hesitant to embrace interracial dating. Because half of Europe are countries that are just two bigger countries mushed together in this one small land, and no one likes those people. Like, no one likes the Belgians. That's actually a real thing, and that's Belgians are just half Dutch, half French. You know what I mean?
No, it's well, and again, it's like no one in the U.S. really. Well, we don't study our own history here. Why would we
Yep.
study? How map lines were redrawn by whatever, like the Ottoman Empire was, calling the shots, or how certain nations, became nations because we better get along because these people over there who have bigger rocks hate us. So we'll all bond together to form these alliances, and no, that for me was the real eye-opening thing to find out, and then you'd be having a great conversation. So again, being an uneducated, American, I didn't know Muslims are Muslims, right? They're all the same, right? Muslims are Muslims. That's what I didn't know. Sunni Shia.
Right.
And then you find out it's like, wait a minute, you guys hate each other more than you hate the Jews. It's like, why is this? Why am I just? Wait a minute, Jesus is in the Quran. How would I not know this? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
that was the best thing about traveling and finding out like, oh, okay, so it's all bullshit. It's all and
So
then
much of it is bullshit. So much of it. There's a great touring comic right now named Victor Patriscan, who is a friend of mine who's been traveling, and his whole show right now is basically he just does crowd work with the audience of like where you're from and then what makes your country special. And it's basically a show that created to basically show that like no one's country is special. All of this is dumb.
oh my
And
god, I love that.
yeah, it's great. I just watched. It's funny because I've known him for so long, so I finally got to. I haven't seen him do an hour in like years, and I watched it. And it's a new show. It's great.
Because because of my wife's job, we got to travel a lot, and it was great. I mean, the only thing better than traveling is free travel, and the only thing better than free traveling is getting paid to travel. But it was for my boys for 3 years to essentially be, just nomads going from place to place and witnessing the best and also kind of the worst of things. Because again, it's one of the great things that I found out, especially in the Arab culture that that we dealt with a lot, no filter. Like, I came, like we were there for like 6 months, came back, and I did a movie, and I was doing some other stuff, and I got back like 3 months later, and people were like, "Oh, you put on a lot of weight since we saw you." Like. Not like being mean or insulting. It's like here's an observation, and
But that's actually that's the thing that the Dutch are probably the most famous for
right.
is boy can they not keep it to themselves.
And and that's one of those things. It's like when you travel and you get to know that. But then the more I travel and the more I realize, oh, everybody's just full of shit. Like everybody, every country is afraid of refugees coming from a place that their country benefited by making into a shithole, and they're so afraid of taking. Everybody's the same thing. Oh, they're coming here taking our job.
It's even worse than that, right? Because the reality is she's coming to us because we have signed treaties, international, legally binding treaties that said we will help you.
Right. Well, and if there's one thing that you and I will agree on is when America signs a treaty, Sid, it sticks by it. Its word is gold, right? I mean, once an American president puts pen to paper and it goes through the proper system of governance and we make a deal with the people, we stand by it. Oh God, we just
What's even So it's even more depressing, actually, just to bum out your listeners even more, is that one of the things that doesn't get talked about is that a lot of times some of the biggest human rights treaties around the world will be mostly written by the American diplomats, only to then find out that America will be the only country that abstains from signing.
That's only happened looking at my notes. Always.
But like, for example, there's a convention against child soldiers. And from what I understand, from like a behind the scenes thing, is that a lot of it was sort of the wording and stuff was specified by American diplomats, but then the American government wouldn't sign on because the military wanted, you know, they wanted ROTC programs to exist, and technically those 16-year-olds count as child soldiers.
100%. And we still have service where if your parents sign off, you can still join the military at 17. So, anyways, let's get back to the comedy. So you first of all, you get a law degree. At what point do you start doing comedy, and at what point do you tell your dad, who, by the way, listen to Sid's special. His dad is a scientist, sounds like an all-around great guy, also sounds like the dad to not trifle with. Okay. Anyway, Sid, so you're going to law school. When do you start doing comedy, and when do you have the balls to tell your dad?
So it's actually much dumber than that. I was a comedian first. And then I went to law school. Boy, basically, my parents were like, "Please, please, just do this one thing for us and have a backup plan of any kind." Um, and then I finally sort of gave in to sort of stop the conversation and went to law school. In fact, actually, the craziest thing that happened, in addition to all of that, that they're only finding out about now, and it's what the special I'm recording next is about, is that when I was in law school, I discovered I had never graduated from college.
That's awesome.
And I basically had to figure out a way to graduate from college in the middle of all of this. So,
How do you not know you graduated?
it's a long story that gets discussed in the special. So I'm trying not to spoil
Okay,
it. But
okay. Well,
essentially,
that's amazing.
yeah, essentially, I had basically made a deal with my college where I moved to New York before I had officially graduated, and I took a class that they said would count.
How long are you doing comedy before you're like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do, but I'm going to make my dad happy, and my dad's not somebody I don't want to be happy. So
Right.
you go to law school. What was the timeline between undergrad and law school?
It was about 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
So really doing comedy.
really. I basically at 22 moved to New York City to become a comic, and I was sleeping on my friend's couch. I got super lucky. I had like basically in order for me to do comedy in the first place, I was driving to San Diego to perform at the La Jolla Comedy Store for the 3 Minute Mic on Sundays. So I was going to school at UC Riverside, and I was just, it was taking forever, and it really was this. It really was this crazy thing where I look back and I was like, wow, I can't believe, like, before I had ever done comedy, I was so willing to like drive,
Mhm.
you know, an hour and a half each way every week for like, a full year. And I think my friends took notice of the fact that I was taking this seriously. So then my friend basically is a really nice guy. He's kind of a rich kid, and he was like, "Hey, listen, um, I'm moving back to New York, and I have this fucking giant ass apartment. Would you like to sleep on the couch?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!"
Oh, dude, where in New York was this?
Oh my god, it was in the West Village.
Holy shit!
Oh yeah, which is a double edged sword, right? Because it's the nicest fucking part, but it also means you can't afford anything there.
Oh, but well, if you're not paying rent, I mean, that's
Yes.
but that's the thing. It's like so probably my two best friends that I made doing this. They have a great podcast. I will ask you to do that in a few months, called Open Mic Pain. But my friend Wayne and Anthony, Anthony lives in Maine, and so when they started doing this around the same time I did about 2 years ago, yeah, Anthony's driving an hour and a half each way to do his 5 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the funniest part is that I'm probably in that first year so young, so nervous, so scared. You know what I mean? That I don't think I started doing mics in Brooklyn and Queens until like probably like 6 months into living in New York. Because I have the worst sense of direction in the world, and the West Village is the one part of Manhattan that isn't really a grid, so I would just get lost constantly.
Oh, well, look, I want to take one step back. What the fuck made Sid think he could do this in the first place? The first time you actually go to a mic and have the balls to stand behind it and tell your little stories. How old are you? How long did it take from I think I want to do this to actually doing this?
Yeah, so I have a very classic Indian story of my parents wanted me to be a doctor, and so I just sort of hated that from the get go, and then I'm in my second or third year of university, and I'm trying anything that is like a creative pursuit that allows me not to think about it. So I had a sports podcast for a long time, and then suddenly I have a friend, actually the friend whose couch I used to sleep on in New York City, who's like, "Hey man, I bet you could do stand up. You're pretty funny." And so at the time, the La Jolla Comedy Store, which he lived across the street from, had a sign that said must be 21 and up to enter. And I'm dumb enough to think that that meant even the comedians had to be 21 and up. So I wait till I'm 21 and then I chicken out. And then I wait till he turns 21 2 months later, and then I use it as an excuse of like, oh, I'm not a narcissistic asshole. No, I'm doing this as a birthday present for my friend. And I sign up and I do the 3 minute mic at the store, and within the first 30 seconds, I'm getting booed because I basically opened my first ever comedy set by talking about how I was an Oakland Raiders fan, which is obviously their rival team.
Were you doing that to get a reaction, or are you inflicted with that disease?
Because ultimately the butt of the joke is my own team, I wasn't prepared for them to not let me get to the end of the joke.
Ah, yes.
But then luckily and it's weird. You look back and you're like, I can't believe I had the wherewithal to do this. But I started making fun of them for booing me as if I didn't have it bad enough as a Raiders fan, I guess. And that's when they sort of were like, they laughed and suddenly they were on my side, and I was able to finish the 3 minutes. I did a very political joke and then got off stage.
So you were always political.
Yeah, well, it was almost like my first year in comedy, I was a one-liner comic, and I was sort of like a topical, almost like a late night monologue.
Okay.
And I think I look back and I'm very grateful to have started off like that, because I think the more of those kinds of jokes you write, the more you start to think in jokes.
I love that process, and I love how telling people you're better than them for some reason gets a great laugh. And I don't know if scientists have figured out why. When you insult somebody, hey, it's great to be here, except you pieces of shit are here. It's going to get a huge laugh, So now, when was the second time you went back? Because sometimes if it doesn't go great, or if it goes great, it's harder to go back a second time. So did you go right back the next week? Did you do the same jokes? What was the process that first year?
How about that? Yeah, I go right back either the next week or the week after. When I basically, you have to call a number to get booked for the open mic. And I called every week, and I remember it had gone so well the first time. It's a 3 minute mic. That I'm like, I'm going to do the exact same jokes a second time. And obviously, I'm going to kill again. And I think I just naturally elongated the joke, almost as if I just assumed I'd get to live in the kill for longer. And I went over 3 minutes and they cut the mic. So I never got the final punchline. So I immediately bombed my second time.
That is great. I mean, it is great because people who don't do comedy don't realize it's like the bombing is the best. Like you learn so much more when things don't go right.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing, like we have so many great comedians on here. You know, all the bigger fish in the smaller pond in New England have come on in the last couple of years. And we talk about you'll do a show on a Friday night at one of the bigger, better known rooms here, and it kills. And the same room, the same joke the next night, it dies a slow, painful death, and you don't
Oh
know
yeah.
why. You know, or the mic cut, like people go over mics here, but they don't cut you, or they don't cut you right away. If it's a 5 minute mic and you're like 7.5, 8 minutes in,
Right.
somebody might like, all right, let's have a big hand for Sid. And as you're leaving the stage, it's like, you motherfucker, you went 4 minutes over. But they don't. I've never seen anybody actually just cut the mic. Oh, savage.
Yeah, and it was definitely like I hadn't even gotten to minute 4, for example. It's like I went gone that far over. I probably hadn't even gotten to 3:15. They were just like, "Kid, listen, you're a kid, and you've gotten one laugh so far in 3 minutes. We're cutting the mic." Like,
So, did you have any mentors when you were starting this? Did you have anybody you worked with that you threw ideas off of?
I wouldn't say ideas off of like that. I got very lucky in the sense that my first year was quite lonely. I would say my first year in San Diego, I was just young. I mean, I was 21, and I was hanging out with a bunch of 25 and 26-year-olds who didn't want to hang out with a 21-year-old.
Oh, yeah, that's
You
a
know?
big. And also, so when people think California, people think it's this liberal bastion of hippies and
Right.
all that stuff. It's San Francisco, it's Los Angeles. The rest of the state is red. Like
Yeah.
where the NASCAR track is, it's in a town called Fontucky, or it's
Yeah.
Fontana. But San Diego, so you're doing political humor and a Navy town. Did your
Yes.
stuff fly there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps that like most of my political stuff back then was still more on the racial side, and that allowed people to give me a pass of like he's talking about his life, so that helped a lot. And versus like I think a lot of the stuff I do now, I would have had a much harder time getting to fly in San Diego then for sure. But at the same time, San Diego kind of like respected balls, you know.
Okay.
And so, to some extent, there would be people out there who were, calling Bush a war criminal, like old Hermit Dave, who's a comic who's since passed. But and people would be like, "Well, we might not agree with him, but we appreciate him having the balls to go on stage and say it."
Yeah, in a town that's 90% military driven.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now you're in New York, and so you're 2 years into comedy at this point. 3
Yeah,
years.
about year and a half into comedy, I moved to New York City, and yeah.
So 6 years in, are things going well when you go to law school, or it's like, yeah, maybe Dad's right, and I should have this backed up.
It's somewhere in the middle. It's one of those things where there's an argument to be made that I feel like I'm on the cusp. I'm getting included in cool shows. I'm getting invited out to festivals, but financially, it also feels like I could also just be finally coming to the end of the road of like, you know, having a full-time job and then trying to do comedy every night it kills you after a while.
What was the day job?
I was very prestigious. I worked for my mother, and I was a technical writer, so like guides and manuals. So it'd be kind of like when a company bought another company, I would help format the new company's guides into looking like the old company. It was very weird, boring stuff. The kind of stuff that where you're like, oh, AI will steal my job immediately.
Yeah, right. It's also the kind of job where you're like, huh, do I want to make out with the wrong in a shotgun today or write another manual? Do I want to make
Yeah,
out with the wrong in a shotgun? And so, what was the process of getting into law school? Did you have to like study for a year it's not the GRNs to get into law school, right? I forget what it is called, like the SATs for law school, or were your
The
undergrad?
LSAT.
The LSAT, thank you. So did you just walk in and take the LSATs? Did you carve out time to get ready for those?
So much. It was so much dumber than that. It was. I told my parents I was carving out time to study for it so that I would have more time to not take their phone calls and go do comedy.
Oh, that's brilliant, man. Good for you.
And eventually I took it, and I needed to get a score that was good enough to justify having taking that much time to study as far as they were concerned. but not a score good enough to get me into law school.
And you
And
fucked up.
I fucked up. I did
Yeah.
well enough, which kind of shows you that like I didn't know as much as I thought I did. I bet if I had taken it earnestly, I'm sure I wouldn't have done that much better than that score. But like, um, and it was that tricky thing where like one of my best friends growing up, when we did everything together, he took it and he got a perfect score. So then, expectations were so heightened of like, well, you can probably get close to that then.
Oh, that's no pressure. No pressure at
But
all.
but basically the goal was to get the kind of score where you can justify needing to take it again, thereby justifying
Another
not
year.
another year of studying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, second year of law school, how were you? Because for people who don't know, like law school sucks and it's hard, but it's the second year of law school where it's kind of make or break. And how did you have time to breathe, let alone keep comedy going during your second year? Or were you
So
going full time or were you going part time?
I was doing comedy every single day in law school. It was the kind of thing where what really helps is that actually it's your first year of law school, which is the make or break year.
Okay.
And it's sort of this thing where I really had the benefit in two ways. One, most of the law students liked me, which meant that they were very willing to share their notes with me. Right? Because I'm not competition in any way. I don't give a shit about law school at the time. You know what I mean? I'm very much I go to class, I take my constitutional law textbook, and I go to the comedy show.
That's amazing. And it's all these new apps, the note taking apps and the translation apps, those are just in the past few years. So I mean it might have been a lot easier, if you have
Right.
all those tools now. So did you get through in 3 years? Was it 3.5 years? Or when do you finish?
I finish in 3 years. And basically, in my last semester, I get hired by my friend Dan, who has gotten his own TV show on Comedy Central UK, and I get hired as a writer. And then I sort of get on board and start writing sketches and doing punch up for him. And then within 3 months, I get hired by this place called Boom Chicago in Amsterdam, and then, you know, suddenly I'm living in Europe, and then I leave Boom and then I start touring for like a couple months, and then I go to LA, and then boom, the pandemic happens.
Oh, and what did you do to keep the laughter going through the pandemic?
So I'm losing my mind, bored out of my mind. I think as most comics were, and then because I had worked at Boom Chicago, I had to do 2 year European Union visa. And so in the summer, America stays locked down. California particularly stays locked down, but um, the Europe has reopened, and so I fly back to Europe, and in sort of an even weirder twist of fate, I'm in Amsterdam for maybe a month and a half, and I get an audition for the show from NBC that uh, it's called Lit News. And it's gonna pay me TV money, American TV money. I'm
Wow.
like, oh my God, it happened. I'm gonna have a real salary. I'm gonna have a real job. Things are going to be great. Plus, it's filming every day from 2 to 5, which means I can also do stand up every night. This is gonna be.
Win-win.
But of course, the pandemic is still going on. It doesn't end as soon as these producers had hoped, so it keeps getting delayed by a month or two. And then I do the dumbest thing you can do, which is I buy my current pair of glasses, and they're like, "Hey, do you have insurance?" I'm like, "I don't need insurance. I got NBC money coming." I'm what they call a classical idiot, I'm so now I'm trapped in London, which has gone back into lockdown. And suddenly, my friend Victor calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, man, why don't you come to Barcelona for the weekend? We can use you on a show. It's open we're following all the rules." And I flew to Barcelona, and when I landed, the NBC show called me to be like, "Hey, we're going into indefinite hiatus." Which the show 4 or 5 years later is still on, so who knows? It could come back.
All right. Okay. Yep. Yep.
No, but and I just stayed in Barcelona for the month and just started gigging there, and then suddenly Berlin opens up again, then Amsterdam opens up again, and I just start touring to all these places that are open.
That's
And
fantastic.
I'm still doing that, basically.
I mean, people here don't realize, first of all, like how easy it sounds like, oh, getting from point A to point B. It's not that big of a deal. It's like the train systems throughout Europe are great. It's flying. Like once you get to Europe, it's so easy to get around. People don't realize how easy it is
Yes.
to get around. Like, here's a shocker. Only in the U.S. do we pretend that it matters to take your shoes off going through security anymore. like,
Right.
like the security theater that we put on here that is, have been proven time and time again to be virtually ineffective. Like they don't bother with that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh yeah. I mean, there's places now that don't even make you take your laptops out. It's perfect.
and it is. It's like if traveling. I don't know since the UK left the EU if that affects getting in and out of England as much as, but as far as the rest of Europe goes, it's not any different than going from like New York to New Jersey, pretty much.
Very
Going
much so.
over
The
borders.
UK is still the one place where it's annoying to get back into because of like 10% more rules, but it's still like, the American passport is such a help for that. People don't ask a lot of questions when you have it. Um, and when you're in Europe, yeah, I mean, you don't even really need your passport from, Berlin to Amsterdam or Amsterdam to Barcelona or Vienna to Lisbon, et cetera, et cetera. They're quite free for that type of stuff.
And so what I didn't ask, and usually I ask, who were some of the comedians when you're getting behind the mic that you kind of had in your head? It's like, I want to be in this bubble, or I kind of want to be likened to this type. Did you want to be, I'm an old guy, so I'll reference, like, did you want to be in like the Carlin kind of humor, or were you trying to be more like, who were the comedians that you were really loving when you started doing comedy?
Yeah, I was always a big Carlin guy. I loved Stewart. But I also loved Conan. I loved the sillier stuff as well. Like I also was super lucky because when I moved to New York City, that's when I found people that I would consider like maybe not mentors, but people who were nice enough to always help me if I ever asked. You know what I mean? And what's sort of magical about New York City is that these are comics who I think the average person or even the average comedy fan wouldn't have guessed that they're friends,
Right.
or that they're on friendly terms, that they might have the opposite styles of comedy, but they respect each other. I remember how helpful Kurt Metzger was when I first, was out there doing gigs in New York. I remember how helpful Hari Kondabolu was. Um, it's funny because she just moved to Europe, but I remind Michelle Wolf that I used to do her open mic when I was in New York City, and she was so helpful.
Oh, that's great. No, it's, we talk about that a lot on our podcast. Like the older guard, like there's like 12, 15 regional heroes in this region, people who are killing it since the 80s. How absolutely, you know, I could go on and on about like these legends who go so far out of their way to be so kind. And if you ask them questions, or they'll say, "Hey, this was great. Can I throw something at you?" And they'll help like restructure a joke, or like, "Hey, I know you think you look comfortable, like, with the mic in your hand and holding on to the mic stand, but it kind of looks like it's a security blanket. Just take the mic and put it behind you and forget about it." Like tiny little things that they're so helpful. Oh, and how many people like, "Hey, do you know this booker?" No. It's like, yeah, call him and tell him I told you to call, or
Yeah.
send him an email and say, "Hey, so and so said to reach out to you." How not backstabby and like cutthroat this community is. And even like I said, even my friends, Wayne and Anthony, it's like the three of us were in and I don't like doing competitions for a lot of reasons, but we were in one together a few months back. The night before, we're on a Zoom punching up each other's stuff. And that's the community that I absolutely love. So to hear that's what you had in New York, it's just awesome. And over there, is it a nice community where like you're all kind of in this together, and you might be from different countries and you're all in Amsterdam doing a show, or are there the Americans hang out with the Americans, um, whatever the UK folks hang out with the UKs, the German comics hang out. Well, bad example, but do the other regions just kind of glom
Well,
together?
I would say I make my living touring Europe, and I am one of maybe like 10 or 12 people who actually do that. So we tend to be close just out of necessity. You know what I mean? Like I think we happen to get along really well, but it's more like, you know, my friend Victor will be like, "Oh my God, I just did Estonia. You guys have to contact his booker. He's a great, he's so good at the stuff." Or this kid Ram will be like, "Oh my God, I just did Brussels. You got to understand how to get into this venue over here. Or I'll do Barcelona until them, or I'll help with Madrid." And so each of these cities has their own local scene, and those are growing really fast, and they have a lot of amazing comics as well. But I think in sort of the headlining touring space, it's still so small that like what's really invaluable is like, I was I stayed in Switzerland in Basel an extra day because my friend was touring, and we overlapped, or we almost overlapped, and I made sure we overlapped by taking the extra day. And then we got brunch, and we just got to like swap, comedy stories and swap like Instagram advertising tips. And it was, yeah, it was very wholesome and nice, and a community that, I don't think exists in every scene in America. And I even say in London, I think is harder to find than it is in mainland Europe.
Well, you see that it's like kind of you're on this island together, and
Yeah.
the smaller that community is, the more, yeah, it helps each other. That's great, man. How often are your parents obviously still Northern California? I'm guessing.
Yes. So I probably visit them once a year. And the funny thing is, they're actually joining me on tour this time. They're flying to Amsterdam next month. I'm doing a show there on the 7th, and then I'll be there from the 5th to the 8th. So,
And do you have siblings?
yes, I have a younger brother, and he will also be joining us in Amsterdam. He's in med school right now, and it's his like last year, so he has a lot more free time.
So that's the child your parents like. Okay, no, I
Oh,
mean,
100%. Oh, yeah, yeah. No question.
one of my best friends in LA, her family moved to the States when she was 10 from Iran, and her father told her, "We're moving there so you can have a better life because you're a woman. And when you get there, when we get to America, you can be whatever you want, as long as it's a doctor or a lawyer. Ronak, you can be whatever you want." And she got her law degree, but she got into TV development, and it's still one of those things where it's like her parents are so proud. She got like 20 shows on TV over like a course of like 12 years,
Right.
but she's not really using that law degree. So kind of a failure, kind of a little shame to the family. And she does. She has a brother who's a doctor, and as they call him, their only child. So, Sid, that is really great. When you
My
come to this,
my brother has a great story actually of at some point one of my mom's friends went up to her and was like, "Oh my God, you have a son who's going to become a great doctor, and you have a son who's went to law school, is now touring Europe as a comedian. You must be so proud." And my brother said my mom made a face like she had never thought of it that way before.
oh, dude, that is. Sid, that is fantastic. When you come to the States, is it for a visit, or will I, if I time my West Coast trips right, I might be able to see you there or New York?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's I try to do shows in LA and New York, and then while I'm there, I try to add a few days to visit the family.
Because I mean, that's the great thing about being in Boston. It's like we are 4-hour drive to like Midtown Manhattan, so we're there on a regular basis, and LA is still kind of home, and it's the same thing. It's that trip up the PCH is well, actually, I'm not sure how nice it is right now because of the
Sure.
fires, but it generally is a nice drive up there. So I would love to come, see your comedy in person the next time you're in the States. I will let you go because you have the rest of Europe to conquer.
Oh, thank you.
Dude, and again, it's like it's just been a recent follow, and I'm so glad that, my friend John found that clip, the special. Do you want to talk about the special a little bit, like the name of it and where everyone can see it?
Sure. It's on YouTube. It's called Illegally Funny, and it's basically I wanted to make a special that sort of attacked the idea of like why is it that people don't feel comfortable doing more obvious shit, like helping refugees. You know what I mean? Stuff that when you really think about it for even 2 minutes, you're like, oh yeah, this is obvious. And it's sort of a thing is like they kind of want someone else to tell them that it's okay to do so first. And so I sort of go through all the categories of those people and have people sort of examine the ideas of why I personally can't rely on those people, and neither can you.
And again, it's smart comedy without talking down to somebody, which is a hard thing. Well, I'm not smart, so I won't be doing that. But you bring up really smart things. But again, first and foremost, it's funny because it's you're not doing a TED Talk. You're doing a very funny comedy special.
Thank you so much.
You just touch on and that's what just made me say, oh, I hope this guy is narcissist enough to want to do our little podcast because he really shouldn't. But it is.
I am.
When I heard how smart it is, and like I said, it's this kind of stuff that I'm like, yeah, people need to not be lectured at. But if somebody can be really funny and help them say, it's like, hey, you love Jesus. You know, Jesus wanted to feed poor people, you know.
Yeah.
But it is fantastic. I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person, either in New York, LA sometime in the next year. You know, so I will let you go conquer the rest of Europe, and I will again thank you for being here. I will make sure that I plug all the socials, and truly, man, this has been a real treat for me. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for having me, man. Yeah, we'll talk soon, and I'm sure we'll hang out the next time I'm in America.
And the most important thing is, don't forget.
So why are we annoying? Why are people on the left annoying? I think it's because too often we are correct, but we are not relevant. Do you understand? We are 100% right, but we're talking to the wrong people. People who are not ready for us. Right? Like, I'll give an example, right? I've been to 17 countries, and all of those countries, everyone on the left has united to say in one clear voice that trans women are women. And are they? Of fucking course they are. If you don't believe that, you are an idiot. But the problem is who we are debating. Because we are arguing that trans women are women, but the other side is arguing that women are not people. So that is a hollow victory. Because we were like, I'll swear to you, trans women are women. And they're like, we agree, they are second-class citizens. I was like, no, that is not the point we are trying to make at all.